This video is going to make you question how you've managed to use the Mac in any way productively until now. When I discovered this unbelievably good tool called Aerospace, I felt the same way. It's completely transformed the way I work on the Mac. In fact, this is so good, I really think it's the kind of thing Apple should have been working on instead of things like Spaces and Stage Manager. Interestingly, with Sequoia, they are at least moving in the right direction with their tiling window features, but it's still incredibly limited compared to what Aerospace has to offer. Window management on a Mac is bad. It's always been bad, and it's only really got worse with features like these that Apple have added to macOS over the last few years. It seems clear that these kinds of things seem to be designed to make macOS more like iPadOS, which is really a shame and not what we need the Mac to do at all, in my opinion. The problem with these kinds of systems designed to facilitate multi-window multitasking workflows is they focus on the experience when everything is fully set up. The trouble is, real life just isn't like that. Apps are opened and closed, and windows and tabs come and go. Workflows change throughout the day. Workflows changing throughout the day itself can be really hard, and what I've found recently is that when I'm taking daily shots of Magic Mind in the morning, my day always goes better. Magic Mind are very kindly sponsoring this video. This stuff is a bit of a magic bullet to a positive, focused and stress-free day. I must admit I was pretty skeptical of this when I first saw it, but actually on closer inspection, if we look at the ingredients, every one of the active ingredients has super compelling research demonstrating its effectiveness. Magic Mind is a mental performance shot, and using it has actually changed me from a skeptic into an absolute advocate. In fact, there are 200 scientific papers behind the efficacy of the ingredients. For example, we've got cognizin citicoline, which has been extensively studied and clinically found to improve memory, performance, and suggest it can reverse age-related changes in the brain. And then there's Bacopa menuri, which has been shown to improve the retention of new information. And on top of that, it contains a bunch of vitamins B, D, and C, the benefits of which are of course widely known. There's also several mushrooms, turmeric and matcha tea, all of which have clinically proven benefits. It would take several videos to go through all the benefits offered by this packed collection of ingredients. And the quality of the ingredients is also clearly next level. The matcha, for example, is organic, ceremonial grade, grown in Japan and only taken from the first harvest. The mushrooms are also organically grown in California, and it's the fruiting body that is harvested, not the mycelia. And all the ingredients are fully tested with each batch produced, and they'll produce the certificate of analysis on demand for these tests as well. I'm very interested in organic production of stuff we consume. In fact, 12 years ago I made a documentary with an organic farm. It's nice to see that video has actually blown up on YouTube over the years. On top of all the actual ingredients in Magic Mind, there is this nano encapsulation technology which makes the ingredients more bioavailable, essentially just making the ingredients very, very small. One thing is crystal clear though, and that is that this isn't any kind of mumbo jumbo. These are legitimate nootropic vitamin and adaptogen ingredients with demonstrable placebo-controlled effects. Of course, I'd never take on a sponsored segment without personally using the product as well, and I can absolutely say the effect of taking these shots is extremely positive. I feel more focused, energized, and mentally prepared for everything when I take these shots. In fact, since taking them, I've noticed that I've solved problems and wrapped up projects faster and with less distractibility. You can get 20% off by using my VALAC20 discount code. This stuff has drastically changed my daily productivity, and I can't wait for you to try it too. They ship to 65 countries and offer a 100-day no-quibble refund if you're not 100% satisfied. So back to the Mac. This effect of workflows changing throughout the day is why I've never managed to stick with any kind of system for window management. The reality is, until now, I've just had all my windows just floating about, and I would use Keyboard Maestro keyboard shortcuts to instantly bring apps into focus. This is actually reasonably efficient, but the reality of having windows scattered all over the place is just a UI design nightmare. It feels and looks really cluttered and messy. Before I started using Aerospace, I always felt baffled by the fact that my screen was this mess of windows of random overlapping sizes in 2024. I get comments from the Linux crowd about using tiling window managers, but up until now I've never really got them working the way I wanted to on the Mac. The ones I've tried have either required a full command line bypass of system security, or just taken over my desktop in such an uncontrolled and unexpected way that I've abandoned them straight away. But the way Aerospace works though is wonderful, and it instantly clicked with the way I think about multitasking on the Mac. It deals with windows in two main ways, tiles or accordion, and the elegance of these two approaches, especially when combined, is just brilliant. I think the brilliance of it is how smoothly it lets you just set up your windows the way you want at any time. It's so easy to get your head around the logic of how it works. The thing is though, it's not limited in power either, and it handles edge cases so well too. Again, this kind of thing can really make some of these multitasking tools fall down. Things like pop-up windows and drag and dropping between apps. I've based the config I used on my mech key, which is my left thumb space key. So when it's tapped, it's a normal space, but when it's held down, it turns into the mech key. And this is a great way of making collision-free global shortcuts. And it can then itself be modified by adding the command key from my right thumb. So I have two full sets of alpha and numeric keys available for shortcuts that won't collide with existing shortcuts on the Mac. Apart from the main hotkey combo, I haven't made any changes to the default config, but I'll link to my file in the description. I'm not going to make this video too detailed on the specifics of the config file because that's well documented, and I want to make this more of a practical demonstration of actually what's possible in terms of workflow. The only keys I can't use for workspaces out of these are the ones I reserve for the movement keys, and these are used for changing window focus and moving window position, and we'll look at more of that in a second. The basic idea first off is my main mech key shortcuts are used to just switch workspaces, and a workspace is a collection of one or more windows. The way windows are organized is by using containers. A container contains collections of windows either using tiles or accordions, and each position in a workspace can then itself become a container, allowing for very flexible window arrangements, and we'll come back to that in a second as well. The nice thing about thinking about workspaces on global hotkeys is that you can use broad mnemonic groups. For example, I can have a workspace for browsers that I get to with a B hotkey, but I'm not forced to just use one app associated with that hotkey. I can use any browser in there, or even multiple different ones. Another group I like using is M for messages. In there I have WhatsApp, messages, email, Telegram and Slack, and they're organized using a combination of tiles and accordions. And then we get to the real magic, and that is how windows are organized within workspaces. The first way of thinking of this is that you can split the view to contain multiple windows either horizontally or vertically. Resizing is all instant and automatic. So the default when you have a single window in a workspace is that it will always be the full size of the screen. I've configured it with some padding between the windows as I like the way that looks. And as soon as you bring another window into the current workspace, it will be split equally with the existing window. So if you're in an app and you add a new window, this is what happens. If you close a window, the remaining windows will instantly resize to fill the space. Basically, you don't ever need to think about resizing windows again. You can easily adjust the proportions of your splits though. You simply focus a window and then you can use the shortcuts to make it bigger or smaller. It even very logically supports resizing with the mouse if you want to do that as well. And the way in which you focus windows within workspaces is critical to the way Aerospace works. It embraces the Vim-style directional navigation idea. So I hold down my mech key and then I use the letters I'm already using in Vim as directional keys. So I can move the focus up, down, left and right. And this brings us to one of the coolest features here, and that is when you change focus, your mouse will center in the newly focused window. This invisibly saves you so much mouse movement, and it's such a brilliant use of the approach. Of course, like everything, this functionality can be configured or turned off. Then we have the move commands. So I've set these up to work based on the command modified version of the directional keys. Using this simply moves the focused window in the direction, swapping with the one it displaces. What I found really good is to prioritize hotkeys on the non-mouse hand for workspaces that often use an inbound drag for files, so that you can start dragging in an app with your mouse hand and then use the non-mouse hand to switch to that workspace to complete the drag and drop. This kind of workflow has often been an issue with things like the native spaces implementation, but works really seamlessly here. Another feature worth mentioning is dealing with floating windows. Many windows are automatically detected as floating, which means they don't cause a tiling split in a given workspace. If you have an app that you want to be treated in this way though, you can always adjust the config to specify it be dealt with as a floating window. I've done this with Noun project, so as soon as I open the Noun app, it simply floats over my current windows and lets me drag off it. This fringe use case is another reason I've been frustrated with multitasking tools in the past, but Aerospace takes it in its stride. So we've looked at the basic approach to dealing with workspaces, changing focus and moving positions of windows in workspaces. Now we start going deeper. Aerospace has a second mode called Service Mode. This has a completely new hotkey scope, and it's mainly used for dealing with joining windows to existing containers. For example, let's say you have a workspace with two windows side by side, but you'd like to easily switch between two windows in accordion mode on the right side. To do this, we need to join a new window with the right side window, essentially turning it into a container of two windows itself. So first we add the third window, then we enter service mode, and then we join it in the direction it needs to go to create the new container. We can put it into accordion mode with the hotkey, and then we can use our persistent window on the left and cycle between the two windows in the accordion on the right. Of course, this mechanism is just so fluid and flexible, you can continue just adding windows, focusing and moving as needed. It's much less a setup process and more actually simply the process itself. It's an extremely rewarding way of using the Mac, and there's definitely no going back for me now. This video has only really looked at the broader concepts at play with this tool. There are all kinds of ways to customize it, and it gets very advanced with application-specific logic and much more. There's of course the installation process to consider too, which is all done with Homebrew. If you're new to Homebrew, it's a tool used for managing tools like Aerospace that are command line based. Follow the steps to install Homebrew if you haven't already got it, and then you'll be able to follow the steps to install Aerospace. There's also this excellent video that goes over the setup and config in more detail, definitely worth a watch. This tool, combined with my daily Magic Mind shot, has been one of the most significant productivity hacks I've found in years. If you want to grab some Magic Mind, you can get 20% off by using my VALAC20 discount code. If you enjoyed this deep dive about using software as a workflow tool, you'll love this one where I show how I built a real-life website using Setseed CMS, and I'll see you there.